All right, how's it going? So in this video, I'm just doing a kind of like a more of a code walkthrough. Some guy asked me on my Discord if I can kind of like refactor his code. And honestly, I looked through his code and his code seems like it's pretty good. So I don't know if there's much to even refactor here. So I wanted to kind of just walk you through his setup and kind of give you exposure to how other people might set up their Next.js application and how they might do stuff in React. I do believe he's using maintime, which is a component library. So that's pretty interesting to kind of get exposure to that as well. But basically, he has his application where he has a bunch of cats for some reason. And I guess at some point, he plans to replace these with images of companies. And those companies have different specialties that you can kind of go through and filter through, like so. And really, this whole entire application is like 2 pages. It's like this main company's page, and you can click on to get a more detailed view about the company. So honestly, I don't even know why he asked me to kind of come in through. And also this drop down doesn't do anything. I don't know if this is a bug, but this is the state of his application. He asked me to kind of look at it and refactor it. So let's actually look through the code. And I want to kind of just show you how he did stuff. So again, this is like a Next.js application. And if I look at his pages, first of all, let's just kind of dive through here. So he has 2 main pages. He has the index page, and then he has the actual like page for the company ID. So the way he did his code, and again, I'm trying to understand if this is like a good approach or not, is he, in his actual like page, he went ahead and just imported a screen, right? So he kind of separated his application into different screens. And the screen is where he has like all the logic of, I don't know. So if you look at the screen, he basically, that's like his next page. Now, I'm not too sure why he did that. I wouldn't do this personally. I don't feel like taking this entire file and moving it to a separate features file with screens helps in any way. I mean, maybe it does because it gives you a better understanding of like, maybe it decouples the route from the actual page. So that's probably why I did it. And, you know, thinking back, maybe that is a better approach. So I can easily change the route to whatever I want. You know, and let me take that back. That I don't know. I probably wouldn't do this. I don't feel like there's much benefit here. But this is just an approach. Secondly, I don't know why he's doing get static props. I don't think he needs to do a get static props. I think by default, like your page is going to be static if you don't do this. I could be completely wrong here. But I believe if I did like a Next build right now and I didn't have this, it would still treat this as a static client-side page. In fact, let me just make sure I'm not telling you something wrong. So I'm going to do an npm run build, and hopefully this works. It actually is failing because I just deleted the static props here. So let's do this. And let's see what it prints out. Usually when you build something in Next.js, it'll tell you like, is this a server-side render page? Is this a client-side render page? Or is this like a static page, etc.? And if you look over here, it looks like the main page, index.js, which is loaded, I guess here. It's saying that this is a empty circle, which I don't even know what that is. It's a static page, right? So again, like, I don't know why he had get server-side props here. I don't think it was necessary. And also, like, I personally would just put this directly inside of this component. I feel like there's just more indirection of like, okay, I'm looking at a page. He's kind of going against the conventions of Next in that approach. But anyway, let's just continue like looking at his code and like see if we can talk more about it. And again, leave a comment below if you think this approach is cool or if you think he went off the deep end with like, I don't know what he's trying to do. Maybe he's trying to like abstract stuff away, but so anyway, this is the main page, and he has like this data provider, which is at the top level so that he can, I believe, share data between his filter panel and his company card list. So I don't know where we should start looking first. Maybe start with the company card list and kind of understand like how this works. So in this company card list, he basically has some main time grid stuff. I'm not really a fan of main time. Like the fact that you have to have components just to do layout seems kind of hacky. I'd rather just have a CSS class and use tailwind, but that's just my personal preference. I mean, like this works. Maybe there's some benefits using this over like tailwind, but I don't know. I'm not a fan because if you look at the actual like profiler here, look at all these components that are like re-rendering and having to render just to, like show something basic. Like you see all these main time providers and main time components. If you were to do this with Tailwind CSS, like this would be like 4 levels deep. Like that's it. It just renders out some HTML in React is done. So I think there's probably a little bit of overhead to having all these maintain components, like potentially re-rendering. I don't know. Over optimization is the root of all evil from what I've heard, so I'm not going to worry about it. But if you look at the actual company card, this is where he has the card set up to basically show those cats, right? So let me make sure I have that app server running again. So looking through his code, he has a main time thing, create styles. Again, like I'm not too big of a fan of like having your styles be like this weird top thing above your components. But if it works for him, that's cool. I know there's a lot of people who do styling way differently in different applications. But this card, it looks like he basically, he gets the styles, he gets the specialties list. One thing I would say is that I noticed he started using like use memo, but I don't see a real reason to even having a memo here. Like he only has like 4 companies or 8 companies. And like for the most part, the memo was like to not re-render these specialties here. I believe that's what the memo was for. So I'm not really seeing the benefit of having a memo. And in fact, if you look at this code, it just looks a lot more complex than what it needs to be. So like what I would probably do, to be honest, is just like take this and just put it right here. And like, don't use a memo. I mean, this might be, this is my own personal preference, right? So you can kind of say that I'm wrong, which is fine. I'm wrong a lot of times. But I do think just using unnecessary use memos makes your code much harder to understand. I don't know why I just broke everything. Let me go up here. Where did I break that? Okay. So, I mean, you can actually like load up the profile and see like, did that slow anything down? And honestly, I don't think it does slow anything down. Removing the memo like barely added any additional render time. So I think it's fine to like not use a memo until you find a real reason to use a memo, because now the code, in my opinion, is easier to read. You don't have to go up and like see this callback that returns like a function that has these dependency arrays and just makes things super confusing to read in my opinion, versus just having this thing inline. Like it's fine. Like, I don't think you're going to have any issues running out like 8 or 10 cards. In fact, like if you do find yourself needing a memo, maybe you should rethink your design. Maybe you're showing too much stuff at once, or maybe you have too much data that React has to do a diff on at once. All right, it's a good sign that you should probably be using pagination or lazy loading or something like that, or some type of virtualization instead of using memos. But let's just keep on looking around. Other than that, I mean, like his code seems pretty good. Like I really don't have any complaints. Again, most of the things I'm telling you in this video are like my preferences. They're not like, oh, he's doing this wrong or he's doing this bad. I think he's doing stuff perfectly fine. So that's like the card list. And then we have the filter panel here, which is based off a specialty filter in a search company's name. I like how he split all of his stuff up into smaller components. Like just by looking at his code, I can tell that he has like some type of searching thing here and then another searching thing here. If you look at this, search company's name goes here. And these are the filters. So the code reflects the UI perfectly, and it makes it really easy to understand like what's going on. Now, would I have made a filters panel for this? I mean, probably not. I probably would have just put it right here. It's fine. Just put it right here, and then you have one less component that you have to worry about. Like, I would have just probably did that. And it should still work the same way, hopefully. I probably just broke everything, didn't I? I don't know. Maybe I need to like restart my app. I definitely broke something. Okay, yeah, here's something I hate. I will tell you my preference on this. I hate barrel exports and barrel imports. Like I don't find any use to these. I understand like the purpose of them. Like you're trying to, you know, componentize and abstract away like the private things from the public things so that you know what you need to import. I just find absolutely no benefit to this. And now if I were to search like his project, he has like 1,000 index files. Okay, he has like 10 or 15, but you can imagine as your project gets larger and larger, you have like hundreds of these things. And I just don't find like a true benefit to even using those. So honestly, I would delete them and just import the components that you need directly. Okay, you can call me dumb for that, that opinion, but I just don't find any benefit to having like all these random index files laying around everywhere. I think they're called barrel imports, but Maybe I need to read more about them to actually fully embrace what they're good for, but I just don't think that they're that useful. All right, so let's look at the search thing. So we have like an autocomplete thing, which I guess is built into maintime. And let's see what this is doing. So he has like this use companies hook. That's where we're getting like the filters, the ability to change the filters, and the ability to get the companies as we change them. Companies autocomplete names. Again, like I just don't find the benefit of having all these memos everywhere. Maybe like there's something I'm not understanding about the performance that he's trying to shoot for. But if possible, like just don't use the memo because it makes your code much harder to understand, in my opinion. Companies autocomplete names. And it probably, like, if you notice, his autocomplete just doesn't even work anyway, right? So like, if it doesn't work, maybe that's a sign that you should not use all these callbacks and memos. Like handle change, he wrapped this in a use callback for some reason. Like, you have to understand, like, the performance of JavaScript, it's not like awful. Like, you can reinitialize functions every once in a while and not have it like eat up tons of time. Like, we're talking nanoseconds of time just to declare a function. It's not like milliseconds, it's nanoseconds. So you can just redeclare this thing and not have to use a callback on it, honestly, unless you really want to. But if you're the type of person who loves doing premature optimizations, then you keep on using those memos everywhere and you keep on using those callbacks everywhere. But I think it makes the code much harder to understand. So again, like if you type in something here, like you see the results pop up, but then they just like disappear. Bloom marketing. So Bloom marketing works for some reason. What about Hardy? Well, I think it's when I type in a company that doesn't actually exist. So if I type in like Z, no, it's when I type in I. I think it's when I type in a letter that exists in multiples of them. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Maybe we can try to fix that real quick. So understanding how this works, we have search companies' names, and when you actually type something in here, we get a new value. So let's first look at like what is new value set to. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to my console and I'm gonna type in O, and type in I. So I mean that's working fine, and he basically sets the value here. Filters of name. So I'm not sure why he has a state here. I think filters.name is going to be the same thing. Like, could he just put filters name here, got rid of that, and then got rid of this? Companies.map. So I'm kind of just doing like a little bit of investigation and debugging to try to figure out like what's going on here. But when the app first loads, like, I don't know how the autocomplete component is supposed to work, to be honest. I think it's when you first click it, it's supposed to show. So I think I might just fix this bug. I don't really know. I have to go look at main time and see like what is the autocomplete supposed to do. But I believe that's what an autocomplete is supposed to do, is when you click it, you get some like suggestions maybe. Main time autocomplete. I don't really know. Click it. Yeah, this is exactly what it's supposed to do. So again, like I just fixed a bug, and the way I fixed it is just by removing all this extra crap that was like everywhere. Like, try to do the bare minimum. The less code you have, it probably means that the more proper your code's going to be and like it's going to work. Sorry, I didn't mean to say crap about your code. I think your code actually looks pretty good. Like you have good structure and all that stuff. But yeah, so if use companies is where the filters comes from, just use that directly here and like let this thing populate its value based on what the filters.name is. And then also just like set that from your use companies. I think that's fine. Yeah, let's look at the, maybe we can kind of, this looks a lot cleaner in my opinion. Let's go ahead and go to the specialties filter. So that's a thing that has like all these little checkboxes. And again, the overuse of the use memos, I'm just going to delete them. The overuse of the use callbacks, like, okay, I'm going to delete them too. We don't need them, in my opinion. And the code at that point is already a little bit cleaner. It's easier to read. So I kind of looked through here to see if there's a way to like clean this up, but I don't think there is. I think the way he did it works fine. He basically has like a factory function so that he can down here create a callback using the specialty ID. And then when I click on one of these checkboxes, it's going to basically call this. Main time is going to call this and pass it true or false. And then he like changes the filtering based on if it was checked or not. So there might be a way you can clean this up like without using the if statement and like have a single set filters. But honestly, like this is pretty clear and concise to read. Like if it was checked, we're just appending the specialty ID to a filters array. If it was not checked, we're just filtering it out of the array. So that makes sense intuitively. Like I think you should just leave this. This is fine. But if anyone in the comments has a better way to like structure this, feel free to leave a comment. What is this doing? So specialties, he maps over the specialties and then he filters them out. If the way this subscriber is using memos and callbacks, I'm surprised he didn't start with the filter, because like to map over an array of like 100 elements and then filter it down, you should probably do it the other way, right? If you're really that keen on performance, filter down your list first and then map over it if you can. So when you do that, like I think what happens is you just have to specialty. You just have to do something like this. So do that and then map over the items. So same idea, like nothing really changed here, but you're just doing it reverse to kind of save some cycles of performance. Honestly, that's premature optimization. That like I wouldn't even have done that, but just the fact that he's using callbacks and memos everywhere, it makes me think that he's really caring about not re-rendering anything and not doing as many things as you can. But do the filter first because you're going to filter that list down. In fact, you could probably just do this in a single for each or single like for loop if you wanted to, but whatever, it's good. So this looks good. I mean, let's go to use companies. He has like this use companies hook, which is what's hooking these things together, right? So he has the provider here, and this provider is what has all the state for the companies, the loading, the specialties, the filters, etc. And when this component or when this provider mounts, he's basically just taking a component, making some stuff, using some callbacks. I'm not sure what he's doing here though. Fetch companies is a function, and when you call it, it's going to basically just fetch the companies from the database, right? I think he just has some like hard-coded JSON files for all the company data. So, I mean, we could potentially clean some of the stuff up. I think it's fine. So like when the provider first mounts, he fetches the companies and the specialties. And then finally, he has like this other thing that when you start typing into the filter, we filter. What is he doing here? Fetch companies by the filters and then set the companies. If is filter fields empty, what is he doing here? If it's empty and if all of the company's current length. To be honest, I'm really confused by this code. I don't know what he's doing here. He has like, if you go up here, he has like a ref. That's kind of red flag for me. Like, I don't know why he has a ref. Keep track of all the companies. Because I thought the companies would be here. But maybe when the component first loads, he fetches all the companies and he shoves it into a ref. So he can keep track of the original companies. I personally would not use a ref. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's some benefit. I would just say like all companies and set all companies. This could be a use state. And that could be like this. And instead of using that ref here, like I would just set all companies here. If it's empty. Okay, so what he's trying to do is like, if for whatever reason you change the filters and like you don't have any filters turned on, he's trying to set the companies back to all companies, I think. Not really sure, but let's just keep that return here. I think this needs to be cleaned up some more. Like I'm not too certain what he's trying to do here. But honestly, I think this should be not an effect. Like I feel like this should kind of be a computed. I don't know. I think I'd rather just do an if else. I think it makes more sense here, or do a ternary. Like you could literally just do a ternary here and then do some of this stuff. So if the filters are empty, then you set the companies back to the original company so that you don't have to like refetch all that data. Otherwise, we fetch all the companies again with the new filters, and then we set the companies here. Why is this complaining though? Expected an assignment or function call and instead saw an expression. Ignore. I don't know what that eslint error is, but I'm gonna ignore it. So yeah, I think this might make a little bit more sense. So like if there is no filters, set the companies back to all companies. What's he doing here? So when the thing mounts, he is going to basically set the companies to result if this thing is empty. Let me take a second to think about this. So he fetches all the companies when the component mounts. Honestly, like I personally would probably just do this. Like I feel like there's like an overcomplication going on here. Maybe I just don't really understand something, but I think if you just had something listening for the filters and you just didn't do this company stuff here, I think this would work just as fine. So whenever the filters effects runs, like that's when we either fetch all the companies again and just set them, or we use the filters and get the companies. And technically, like the backend, if it was smart enough, you could just pass it the filters and it wouldn't crash. But I guess he's doing that for a particular reason. So let's see if this actually still works. It doesn't. I definitely broke something. Let's see. All companies. Why would that not be working? Okay, so the specialty should be fine. Let's actually make sure, is this running? Console.log. We are here. Okay, so when filters change, it actually does what it's supposed to do. But I guess when we turn the filters off, is filter fields empty? Fetch the companies, and then we're going to get all the companies back, and then we're going to set them here. So let's make sure we get this. I'm going to say like companies. You know, I wasn't expecting to do actual like refactoring, but yes, here we are. Let me just go ahead and console log. I'm gonna console log the companies real quick. So when I turn on the filters and turn them off, that's when I get back all 8. So the issue is that like I think the UI is just not correctly bound to this because I am. Oh, okay. I think I'm saying the wrong thing. I think I need to do this. So I need to instead set the companies here. Am I confusing the heck out of all you all? I think I'm confusing myself a lot. So, okay, that I think is working. I was calling the wrong setter. The setter that's the state that's used for showing these cards is the companies one. So I needed to call set companies on that. So yeah, I think this is a little bit cleaner. It's not the most performant, and honestly, if you wanted to do caching, like your fetch companies here should probably have a built-in cache, just so that this is a little bit cleaner. But when the filters change, like honestly, I would probably even make it even simpler. I would just allow the backend to not crash and just call filters like this, but I don't know why you had this extra logic here. And I guess we don't even need the old companies anymore. So we got rid of the ref. That was all to get rid of the ref. I don't know why you had a ref. I would never use a ref unless like you just need to bind to the DOM. There are some like instances where you do need to have mutatable state and mutatable refs, but I think in this example, like, I don't think it was as necessary. And I think he was trying to use it as a cache, but honestly, like what he could have done is he could have done like some type of, I don't know, companies cache up here, or just use like React Query if you really want to cache stuff. You can kind of grill me in the comments if you think I just made this app less performant, but honestly, like who cares? It's easier to understand, and that's worth its weight in gold when you can actually read the code and understand it versus like you're trying to shave off 100 milliseconds for a user. But let's go ahead and look at, what else can we look at? So this is like the provider, but I think there was like a use company's hook. Oh, we're back here. This is the same one. Fetch companies. Again, like a callback. I don't know if I'd even use a callback here. Does it really help anything? I don't know. The app still works pretty fast. Again, I'm locally, so like maybe that's part of the issue. But yeah, let's see what's going on here. Set fetch companies. That's loading the true, and then finally he turns loading off, and then he returns the results here. Git companies is probably like a backend API endpoint. I think all he's doing is he's loading some data from like services, which is just loading data from state or from data or something. He does an Axios Git on /companies. So if I were to go to like API/companies, let me actually go to this API page. Server. The one thing I also found strange about his project is he has like this API setup, and again, he decided to pull those out into different handlers. Again, I would just have the code live here because it's easier. It's one less indirection that you have to follow to understand the code base. But he has like the handlers defined here, and like he has the code that handles the actual like API request living in a separate handlers file, which is fine. Like I have no issue with that. But at this point, like, why not just have it directly here, right? You know, like he has like get all. Like personally, like why not just do this? Where'd it go? Let me just pull this whole thing out, this whole function. Like this is what I would have done, but I'm not saying that my way is the best way. I would have just put the function directly here, like so. And then just go ahead and import this stuff. Like, I don't know if you're really getting any benefit from like pulling that out to a separate file, but maybe you are. I don't know. Make sure this still works if I refresh the page. Right, it's just because you don't want to go to a file and then you have to go and like dive into more files. But if you wanted to follow like clean architecture or some type of like tiered, layered architecture, then yeah, you'd probably, this would be your controller, and your controller should call a use case. So eventually you would end up having like this separate file. So maybe I should just take back everything I just said. I personally don't like having one function or one file that has like all your getters, setters, and whatever. Like I would have split these out into separate files, to be honest. If he was going to go down this approach of separate handlers, like I probably would put like a company here, and then I would put like get all company handler. That's just my preference. Like if this thing has absolutely nothing to do with this thing, why are they in the same file? You know what I'm saying? Like just separate them out. Export async function get all, and make sure I auto import all this stuff. I'm just trying to prove a point or show a point real quick. It might not be the correct point, but I'd rather just do this than to have one file that ends up having like 5 or 10 different methods in it. Because now I just have a single file, and when I open that file up, like I'm not overwhelmed with all this code. I just see one function, that's it. That's all my mind needs to worry about. Versus when I open this, I have to scan through and I have to like mentally block out, okay, I'm just worrying about this one. I don't care about this one. I just want this one. And then like I have to go and do more steps to either like minimize it so it's not in my face. Again, a lot of people do this approach where they have like one file that has like 5 or 10 different methods in it. I'm just not a fan of it, but yeah, let's look at what else he's doing on the back end. So he has a company service. And this is doing, I don't even want to read through this code. I don't know what the heck this stuff is doing, but he's, I guess, just taking some data because he loads some company's data from a JSON file. And depending on the filters that come in from the front end, he's like looping through them and filtering them out. I want to bet 100% like this could easily be refactored. And I don't see any unit tests over this file, and the amount of branching logic is insane. The reason I bring up testing is because he does have like some React testing library stuff set up, like snapshots. So if you wanted to actually like get into testing, you should be testing all this code. Like this code is pretty complex, and it's probably very easy to break if you do something wrong. But I don't have the mental capacity to even read through this and refactor right now. I don't think he actually talks to a real database, so maybe these are just like files that he's like, you know, I won't worry about making them clean because it's just like a temporary solution until I get a database going. But it's always good to have stuff like this if you're doing like locally running services and you want them to run really fast in your CI/CD pipeline, because now you don't have to deal with a real database and you have like all this stuff mocked out. But I guess I'm still just giving you my opinions on stuff. What else does he have here? He has some hooks. He has like a use persistent storage hook where he's just loading from local storage and writing to local storage, I believe. Value, set and save value. So, I mean, there's nothing really, I think this is a good approach. Having like separate hooks that wrap all that stuff makes it easier for your components to use them. And then the company screen, I don't think I've even looked at the company screen yet. Bloom marketing. So all this thing is doing is when the company screen renders, again, he's using callbacks and like, I don't know what all this extra complexity is, but fetch the company based on the company ID in the fetch company. So I guess this is like the on mount effect. So that when this page loads, like he's mounting based, or he's fetching based on the company ID. And this would probably complain if he didn't put this here, because that really annoying eslint thing that says all your React hooks. Honestly, I don't know if I like that eslint warning. I know people are going to think that I'm a noob because I don't like it, but when I see code like this, it's very apparent that this is an on mount functionality. And the fact that this is on a screen that should only ever have like this, you know, ID, maybe once, like I don't see the reason why we have to like listen for the ID, but I guess it's better to do it this way. So I'll just keep it that way. What is fetch company doing? So I think this is like kind of supposed to be an API call, or what is he doing here? I don't know. He started having some custom hooks, so it's like, why not just have custom hooks here? Like he could have made a hook called like use company. In fact, like you could just put it right here. It doesn't really matter. I could say const use company, which is going to be all this logic pulled away. And really it's going to return like is loading. Let me get the error messages. Error messages company. Let me do this. Put that in there. Make sure I return company. Make sure I return error message. Make sure this hook takes in a company ID. Just put any for right now. What else is this thing doing? Right, so if you can, like use custom hooks because it helps abstract your code and make it easier to understand. And if you do that, and if I did this correctly, like all this stuff goes away, and really all we need is company and error message equals use company. Pass it the ID here. Okay, does this work? Did I just break it all? Looks like it's still working. Okay, so I mean, what that did, like now this component is a lot more like cleaner. Like I'm not overwhelmed with everything that's going on. And I don't even need to know where the company stuff is coming from. I just need to know I pass in an ID and then I get back this thing that has the company information, and it also has any type of error messages if, for example, I went to the wrong company, which I guess is what he's trying to do here. Yeah. So yeah, all I did is I just put that into a custom hook for, I guess that could be a number or a string or something. And I abstracted all that stuff away, so you don't need to know like the underlying state. Like, is this coming from React's use state hook? Is this coming from Zustan? Is this coming from Redux? I don't really know, and I don't care. All I know is that I just have to call this use company hook, and I get back some data. This is supposed to be a string. Let me do that. Is there a way we can clean this code up? Let's see what's going on here. So use callback, fetch company. In a sense, like I think you could probably not even do all this. Like I could have just put all this code inside the use effect if you wanted to, so I don't have to keep like jumping around to understand. I don't know. It's a personal preference, but like you could have just, could you have just put this try catch in here and would it made it easier? I don't know. But I mean, I think this is pretty good. As long as it's behind a custom hook, like you don't have to worry too much about how clean it is. And this component looks pretty clean, so I think it looks pretty good. But I think that's like all I kind of wanted to cover in this video. I mean, if you guys have a... You could also like abstract this to a separate hook file if you wanted to. Some people don't like doing that unless they actually know it's going to be reused in multiple places. But it's up to you. Like I could have abstracted this away into like a use company.ts file and just go ahead and like export it. And then I just need to make sure I just import like whatever methods that I needed here. Like so. And now I don't have to have all this use company stuff everywhere. And I've reduced the amount of things that this file is actually dependent on. So it's still a little bit shorter. It's a little bit cleaner. Just need to auto import it. And I think this will work just the same way it did before. Yeah, it looks fine. So yeah, those are some of the things I probably would have done to refactor his app a little bit. Overall, I mean, I think what he did was fine. I think there's, other than like all the use callbacks and use memos, like I would try to avoid those. The barrel files, I would not use those because I don't like them. I'd have to get used to this styling approach because I'm so used to Tailwind that like having all these styling up here, it's completely like isolated from the actual components. It's just a lot of context switching, right? So if I wanted to know what the styling is for this, I got to go jump up here to like this classes button. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but when you're using Tailwind a lot, like Tailwind just makes sense. It makes it all clean. You don't have to keep jumping up and down between your components. But yeah, I mean, leave a comment below if you have your own suggestions of how this code could have been cleaned up and improved. Leave a comment, leave a like, press that subscribe button. Also join my Discord if you want to talk to me directly or talk to other people who are trying to learn how to code, trying to learn React. I got a community of people just trying to help each other out and get through that struggle, which is that of learning how to code, which can be hard sometimes. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good day and happy coding.